What if the energy fueling your city disappeared tomorrow? Not gradually, not next year, instantly. Factories stall, lights flicker, the world freezes. Currency dominates markets, but without energy, it is powerless. Dollars, euros, yuan, none matter if the grid stops and supply chains collapse. Oil, gas, lithium, cobalt. Each barrel, each ton, each mine is a lever. Nations hold them, and they hold the ceiling of global power. Control over resources is not just wealth. It is influence, strategy, resilience. The world's superpowers are defined by what flows beneath their soil. Shifts happen quietly: pipelines, mines, processing plants. Yet when supply tightens, prices spike, alliances strain, and the balance of power trembles. In the 21st century, energy and minerals do more than power economies. They shape diplomacy, strategy, and the future of global dominance. For much of the 20th century, the global financial system revolved around a single currency, the dollar, anchoring trade, reserves, and international settlements worldwide. Currency dominance, however, does not exist alone. It rests on credibility, military reach, economic size, and increasingly, the stability of domestic energy supply. For decades, the United States depended heavily on imported oil, shaping foreign policy decisions, military deployments, and delicate diplomatic calculations across volatile regions. Energy vulnerability influenced strategy. Supply disruptions threatened growth. External leverage constrained flexibility. Dependence carried geopolitical consequences beyond mere market fluctuations or price volatility. Then the shale revolution altered the equation entirely. Hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling unlocked oil and gas reserves once considered unreachable beneath American soil. Production surged dramatically. Imports declined steadily. Exports expanded outward. Energy independence no longer seemed distant theory, but emerging strategic reality, reshaping economic confidence. Independence did not mean isolation. It meant flexibility. The ability to fuel industry, power grids, and export surplus energy reduced external leverage significantly. Domestic production strengthened fiscal stability. Energy exports reinforced trade influence. Resource capacity began supporting broader economic resilience during periods of uncertainty. Meanwhile, the dollar remained central in global energy transactions. Oil contracts denominated in dollars sustained worldwide demand for reserves and liquidity. Energy markets and currency dominance started reinforcing each other. Resource security supported economic strength, while economic strength reinforced monetary credibility internationally. Dollar liquidity stabilized trade flows across continents. Central banks accumulated reserves. Energy transactions deepened reliance on American financial infrastructure and systems. Energy security strengthened domestic resilience. Stable supply protected industrial output, employment, and inflation expectations during global disruptions and geopolitical tensions. A loop emerged quietly. Energy supported economic expansion. Economic expansion reinforced currency trust. Currency trust amplified geopolitical influence worldwide. This dynamic was not about barrels alone. It was systemic architecture, integrating resource capacity with financial networks, shaping global commerce. When a nation combines abundant energy with dominant financial infrastructure, it does not merely participate in markets. It shapes pricing, liquidity, and stability. Energy alone cannot create dominance. Yet when paired with monetary reach and institutional credibility, it multiplies national leverage across interconnected systems. In moments of crisis, supply shocks, downturns, geopolitical strain, resilience matters most. Control over critical inputs becomes foundation for broader economic endurance. Power rarely rests on one pillar. But when resources and currency align, the resulting structure becomes durable, influential, and exceptionally difficult to displace. Resource abundance does not guarantee control. Australia sits atop vast iron ore deposits, coal reserves, and critical minerals essential for modern industry. But wealth alone does not ensure leverage. By geological measures, Australia is rich. Mining has fueled decades of growth, exports supporting public spending, trade balances strengthening, and national income rising, lifting standards across cities and regions. Yet producing resources differs from controlling their destiny. Much of this wealth flows outward, feeding foreign steel mills, powering international industries, and supplying critical minerals along global manufacturing chains. Exports generate revenue, but also vulnerability. When global demand rises, growth accelerates sharply. When demand falls, fiscal strength erodes. Commodity cycles create booms and sudden contractions, impacting stability. Prices surge during global expansion and contract during downturns. The economy mirrors external conditions, with domestic prosperity intertwined with foreign markets and fluctuations beyond national control. Resource-dependent economies experience rapid booms, followed by abrupt corrections. Fiscal planning becomes delicate. Investment cycles expand and retract. Societies feel prosperity and fragility almost simultaneously. Diversification challenges emerge. Extraction dominates, leaving limited vertical integration. Without refining, manufacturing, or processing, the country's position depends on global market stability and external demand. Unlike nations with fully integrated value chains, Australia relies heavily on foreign buyers, foreign processing, and international trade. Leverage remains external, dependent on partners' stability and strategic intentions. If geopolitical tensions disrupt trade, exposure intensifies. Revenue declines. Strategic choices narrow. Resource wealth generates both prosperity and dependence, revealing the delicate balance between abundance and vulnerability. Iron ore feeds overseas steel production, coal fuels foreign industries, and critical minerals flow abroad. Australia's geological wealth circulates through global networks without absolute domestic control. Exports create opportunity, yet control rests elsewhere. The processor, manufacturer, and global buyer shape terms. Physical resources alone do not confer influence in the modern economic system. Owning raw minerals is insufficient. Strategy defines autonomy. Policy decisions, investment in value chains, and positioning within global networks determine whether abundance translates into leverage or exposure. Resource wealth offers potential, but also dependency. Without domestic refinement or industrial integration, Australia remains partially tethered to international demand cycles and geopolitical stability. This dynamic is critical. Commodities flow outward. Revenue depends on external consumption. National fiscal strength mirrors global conditions, creating a structural reliance on markets beyond immediate control. Diversification, processing, and industrial strategy can shift leverage back home. Without these, export-heavy nations remain susceptible to market swings, price volatility, and shifts in global demand patterns. Australia illustrates this distinction clearly. Wealth in the ground does not equate to commanding the system. Control emerges where extraction, processing, and integration converge strategically. In a world of strategic supply chains, exposure carries risk. Abundant resources provide opportunity, but without domestic value capture, the economy is partially at the mercy of foreign markets. Resource abundance remains strength, but without diversification, processing, and value chain control, it can become dependency. Strategic positioning is the difference between autonomy and external vulnerability. The 21st century is not abandoning resources. It is redefining which materials matter most, reshaping geopolitical influence, industrial strategy, and the foundations of technological power worldwide. Global demand for lithium, cobalt, nickel, copper, and rare earth elements has intensified. Renewable energy, electric vehicles, and digital infrastructure drive unprecedented extraction needs. Solar panels require silicon and silver. Wind turbines rely on rare earth magnets. Electric vehicles demand battery metals. These materials are now central to national security calculations. Transition away from hydrocarbons does not stop extraction. It changes focus. Energy transformation is material-intensive, requiring mining, refinement, and supply chains capable of scaling rapidly. Copper demand surges with electrification. Lithium supply chains expand aggressively. Nickel and cobalt have become strategic assets, giving countries holding them renewed influence on the global stage. Countries rich in transition minerals gain renewed importance. Nations controlling refining and processing capture leverage. Those lacking secure access face vulnerability, dependence, and strategic disadvantage. The race is not only technological, it is logistical. Securing stable supply chains has become a national priority for all major economies pursuing energy transformation. Strategic reserves are being reconsidered. Industrial policy returns. Trade agreements increasingly embed resource provisions. Nations act proactively to protect access to critical materials. The transition introduces tension. Can supply scale quickly enough to meet climate targets? Will competition for minerals create new dependencies or geopolitical confrontations? Processing bottlenecks may shift power toward specific regions. Countries controlling midstream and downstream capabilities gain negotiation advantages beyond mere extraction rights. Demand acceleration increases pricing volatility. Investment surges into mining infrastructure, yet environmental regulations, technical complexity, and political constraints complicate expansion and supply reliability. The shift from oil to renewables does not remove geopolitics. It redistributes influence, creating new arenas for control over foundational inputs and material leverage. Previously, control over oil fields defined global influence. In coming decades, dominance over battery metals and processing capacity may define strategic positioning. The transition race is about securing the material backbone of a new energy system. Nations compete to ensure access to essential inputs for industrial strength. Countries investing in refining, integration, and value chain control will translate geological wealth into sustained geopolitical leverage and resilience, shaping alliances and dependencies globally. Supply security becomes survival. Strategic planning, industrial foresight, and cross-border trade management define national power in the 21st century energy transformation era. Access to critical minerals determines who benefits from electrification, renewables, and advanced technology, influencing domestic prosperity, industrial capability, and international negotiation strength. History shows controlling foundational inputs shapes power direction. In the transition to renewables and new energy systems, material access defines influence, resilience, and the architecture of modern dominance.